live with the amazing Nadia Colucci is here.
Hi,
Great
how
to
are
have
you?
you. And you brought a furry friend today.
I did. I brought one of my nephews, Boomer. I'm dog sitting, so he has to come with me because he has separation anxiety. Say hi, Booms.
What's up, Boom? Boom, Boom. What's up, bruh?
I think he's like overwhelmed by all the light in here, much like I am.
Yeah, he's great though. How cute.
He's sweet. Yeah.
Terrific. Boom, are you going to help us understand the benefits or lack thereof in real estate technology today?
I hope so. Someone has to explain it. So we already talked about it. So I have all of his notes and I'm ready to share.
I mean, I guess it starts with at the top of the funnel is like, you know, the Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com, just the ability to look at, you know, properties online.
Right.
That's where the like real estate tech began.
Yeah, and look, in all fairness, technology change is inevitable, right? We deal with it all the time. Whether you like it or you don't, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it has been good, just basic technology before even Redfin came around. I mean, I was happy not using the Thomas Guide ever again. Remember that thing? I don't know if you've been doing this long enough, but I have. And the Thomas Guide, like you'd spend hours trying to just map things out, where now I can just plug it in and I can actually focus on my client in the car. You know, while you're driving, you're trying to get to know them, you're, you know, drinking a glass of wine, you're trying to do...
While you're driving?
It's a lot of multitasking, and now we actually just get to focus. We get to talk about the property that we just saw and dissect it together, and I think that's a lot better than... You know, I think it wasn't, oh yeah, see, he agrees. It wasn't useful to have that, you know, time spent in the Thomas Guide. So that's like a basic example of, you know, how much better technology has helped our industry.
Having the you know, the data online is great, but having the photos, having video, 3D walkthrough tours, I think that stuff is all inarguably positive to the extent that if you're a buyer and you don't have time, or your time is constrained, for you to be able to see what's on the market without necessarily having to go put boots on the ground and walk into every single house.
100%.
So that's definitely a positive.
I think so. I think it's helped buyers. You hopefully hope it allows a buyer to focus and narrow down a little bit more, because I think what happens a lot of times too is buyers they have all this availability to the internet and inventory, right? Or rather the inventory that's available. That's right, Boom. And I don't know that they always know what to do with it, right? I mean, is he going to keep doing this the whole time? Here, you want to take him?
See you later, Boom.
Bye, buddy. That was it. That was your 15 seconds of fame. Go say hi to Carrie. Oh, there you go, buddy.
I think he's afraid of heights.
He's so short.
I know.
That like the height is probably
2
really
feet
big for
is
him.
just too much.
Yeah.
But now, here's a question for you. What do you think about like Zestimates or the online, you know, I mean, does that help?
So I think it's a great tool and a great guide for a quick reference. If you just want, sure, it's a great guide because it's an algorithm. It's easy. It's not always accurate. I mean, they're the first to tell you it's not accurate. If you read the fine print, they're significantly off in some areas. I still have my condo in Del Mar that they say is worth $300,000 more than it's actually worth. Now, I know what it's worth because I do this. So in those cases, I think it skews judgment. And then you have, in the case of a seller who's, you know, maybe before you go into a listing presentation, they already have a predetermined value and they're getting that from the internet. So a tool in an unskilled hand can possibly sometimes be a bigger detriment than it is a benefit. So if they saw that their neighbors sold for X, well, let's say their neighbor had a pool-size yard and their neighbor had, you know, better upgrades and maybe they even had a view. An algorithm can't account for that stuff. So then this person thinks their home is worth more, but at the end of the day, you know, let's say they're on the street, so now they have the street noise. Well, they're like, well, that's not that much. And I'm like, no, that carries about a $50,000 value for people. It really does at the end. I've sold enough on streets. So in that way, I think it almost harms the client because now they got used or thought this was the number, and now they have to scale it back. So they don't want that. So they might be more inclined to overprice it, list it, and then be on the market longer. And last time I was here, we talked about how the market time is up 35% from last year.
It seems to be steadily increasing as well.
Yeah.
I personally think that they should do away with these. I feel like there should be some sort of law against it. And the reason is because you don't realize how damaging this can be if you overprice a home, how much money you can lose. It's impossible to underprice a home. That's why we see these $1 listings, because people realize that, you know, hey, if you underprice it, you're gonna get to market value. You know, it may be it may be more like a Black Friday,
Right.
at Walmart.
Right.
But you're going to get to market value if you underprice. So you almost can't underprice a home, right?
But sellers they don't feel comfortable with that. I always try to say, look, the ideal pricing is still, and it changes with the market. And right now we're at, if you price it just under what it's worth, you should have multiple offers, and you'll get the price that you wanted, probably plus some. But if you overprice it, go to explain your CarMax theory, because people do not like to haggle in the United States.
They don't.
I'm from Italy. I was like a born haggler. I love it. And I spent a lot of time there growing up. It's in my DNA. Like, I think I grew up in a big family, so I was always negotiating. I was trying to get my brother to play Barbies with me. He's like, fine, then you do my chore. He's probably going to kill me that I just admitted. I'll play with Barbies. No, and so I was like, all right, if I want him to play with me, I got to do his chores. Do I really want him to play, or can I find someone? And I think we all kind of have it, if family-wise. But then the culture behind it, I mean, pretty much every other country in the world barters and haggles.
For everything.
Yeah, like I've seen it in the grocery store in Italy. I'm like, this is like a chain. There's no bartering, but they do. They try.
100%.
So I'm very comfortable, and in fact, I probably thrive in that area. And a lot of other people, like my clients, want top dollar, or they want the best bang for their buck, but the haggling part of it is a little uncomfortable, and I get that.
It's very
so let me do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they really need to understand, that's part of why you're hiring an agent.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a negotiation all the time, Derrick. It's like from the beginning, not just the contract, not just the price, then starts all the other negotiating. It's almost, I would dare say, that anytime you pick up the phone, it's a slight negotiation. Whether it's showing you're always trying to sell something, not manipulate, but help, explain, showcase, whatever you can do in that call to, if an agent's calling to show my listing, I'm going to try to sell it to them so that when they're there with their client, they're selling it on my behalf.
I can give you an example, and I'm sure there are many on the the front of, and I'm saying Zestimates because Redfin has an estimator. There's different websites.
Realtor.com, everyone has one. They're always different.
They're all different.
Check them all out. I think it's funny.
So, I mean, to me, that's harmful because I've seen it happen where, we had a seller from this listing who wanted to get $3.2 million for his house.
Okay.
And it was East Carmel Valley, East Gate or something like that.
Okay.
And
nice area.
Really nice area.
Yeah.
Super awesome house.
Right.
But he was stuck on that because that's what the Zestimate said. And the house didn't sell.
Right.
Today, I bet he lost $200,000 or $300,000, maybe $400,000 because he didn't sell in that market,
right,
which was much better at that price point than that price point is today. And I don't know if he's, when he's going to sell it, but it definitely cost him money. And so it was those estimates that cost him that money. Because if he had just been listening to the agents,
right,
and that was his reference point, and the comps and the logic behind that,
right,
he would have priced the home appropriately. It would have sold pretty quickly, and he probably would have made an extra $300,000 or $400,000 than he would today.
Easy. So that's where it's a negative, I think. This, you give all these people information. Everyone's skilled at their job. They do great at what they do. We're here because we are great at what we do. Hopefully, you find the right agent. Listen to the professional. I don't usually walk into the doctor's office and tell them. I might say, look, I researched this on WebMD, and he rolls his eyes.
Right.
But I'm like, but this is, can you help me understand it so I can, trust a little bit better this process? And then they do. They take the time to do that, and then I keep going to that doctor. It makes sense. So I think people feel that real estate is like, oh, well, I can do that myself. And this abundance of information that they're not used to having. We were trained with it. Before, I used to be able to send my clients what worked for them based on what they told me. Now the client can see anything and everything. So I'm in a networking group, and there was a story that this agent kept sharing about this girl that he was representing. She was qualified, which is always step one, right? She was pre-approved, qualified at 1.2. But on the internet, she could see 1.3 and then 1.4. And she's like, well, maybe I can borrow money from my parents, or maybe I can, borrow this or that or that. And all of a sudden, she's looking at 1.4 and now wants to go out and look at properties at 1.4. And they're like, yeah, but you're qualified at 1.2. The second I show you 1.4, it's going to look a heck of a lot better than 1.2. It just is. So you have to hone them in and help them focus. They kind of get into this dreamer's mode, and then it can derail the focus quite easily. And what ended up happening is they were in and out of a couple escrows. So now that's everyone's time wasted. There's the seller's, lender, escrow. Everyone gets involved at that point. And 2 days later backs out, doesn't even do an inspection, doesn't even have a good reason. But their expectations are hanging on this 1.4 that they can't have. So anything they get at 1.2 is not practical, or it's not viable to them anymore. It's practical, but it's not viable. Like they're like, well, I want this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I want a Ferrari too, but like,
that could be the downside to having, the full access that we really talked about earlier as being maybe no downsides. Maybe that's the downside, is that you could cause you to stray off into price points that don't make sense and skew your expectations. Because the thing with the estimates is and tell me about, is the condo that you have in Del Mar, is that for sale right now?
No.
Okay, it's sold?
No, I'm not selling it.
Not
no,
selling.
It's rented out.
It's rented out?
Yeah, it's a rental.
Oh, okay.
Now.
Gotcha,
it was primary before.
Gotcha.
But I've had it for years, and yeah, I keep watching this estimate. I'm like, sweet, goes up. I'm like, so I'm like, take it, Zillow, sell it for almost because it's not worth it. But if you could, so I almost feel, yeah, if you're going to put information out there, there should be a responsibility. But Zillow says all the time, this is just a tool. And in fact, again, they say we're not accurate, so be careful.
Right.
I mean, they say it right there, but no one reads that.
No one reads that. That's why it's dangerous.
Right.
Now, you mentioned something though interesting. You said, hey, Zillow, sell it. There is Instant Offer. Mm-hmm. There is Redfin Now, I think it is. And then there's a few other companies that just will buy your house from you directly.
Yeah.
And the kind of understanding that I have is that that's mostly investor kind of money, or it's maybe, I don't want to say the word lowball offers, but it's like, I know with the Redfin Now, they build in 7%. So whatever the offer there is for you, if you think you're saving money on like commissions, you're not. Like
you're
there's
not.
7%. So that's actually more than you would
When you would
pay.
pay in commissions.
So
Yeah,
you
and closing costs, total.
So it's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of compare that to actually a full, retail market time offer.
Right.
And it's hard to say that, they would beat a full market time offer.
I think there's still enough buyers. Our interest rates are super low and so competitive that I think buyers will drive up the price more so than paying this iBuyer situation. I don't think you can replace a human. In some cases, I know they're trying, but I really don't think you can. I would never feel comfortable, one, borrowing money from a bank, and two, putting my own money into something, hundreds of thousands of dollars, that a computer told me to buy. Like, you know what I mean? I'd probably want to interview, talk, have inspection, like do all of that. And I think that skews it. So maybe investors from another country or another side of the,
Well, like Redfin is buying these properties and keeping them, some of them. And then sometimes they're selling them, sometimes they're holding them. It's really interesting. I'm trying to figure out what they're doing and what their game plan is.
You and I have talked about it. Redfin has not reported any income for many, many years. So something is
They've never
not
made
working.
any money.
They've never made money.
Never made profit.
I mean, I don't know
They've
many
grown.
businesses that can't. But if there's funding behind them with an ultimate goal to do something else, which has probably become more of a brokerage type, and then you have all these properties to come to market with, but they're going to lose money. But if you have enough funding, losing 10% is not a big deal. But if you're, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 10% left on the table or lost is a lot of money.
50 grand, 60 grand.
It's a lot.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
significant.
Big money. That's big money.
It is big money.
Because it's net money.
It is.
Usually. I mean, like, if your down payment money is your net money.
Right.
Typically, when you sell the money that you're getting, the delta, there, your net is net money.
Right.
It's typically you're not paying tax on it, but sometimes you are if it's investment property or whatever.
Sure.
Most of the time, you're not.
Still, you're not. Yeah.
So that's cash money.
I know.
So it's leaving money on the table doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't actually have any experience with. If anyone has experience with iBuyer or anything like that, let us know. I'm not really sure what that's about. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but I don't know exactly what it is. I know they let people in, open door. They let people in. I think iBuyer is one where they're actually trying to connect you with a buyer directly. I think it might be a retail buyer. I'm not 100% sure. But there's a lot of this going on, and this is typically what happens. These are the things, the trends that take place at the top of a market, usually.
Right.
When you see increases in the number of discount brokers and discount brokerage offerings, and you start to see more tech and more, this is so easy, let's just make an app for it,
Right.
That's usually the type of activity you see at the top of a market. Whether that's the case now or not is, the jury's still out. But that's typically what you see now.
We saw this last time with all the discount that came and then went, because at the end of there's no way to I'll say this: no transaction is black and white, right? We've done plenty of them. You've been around enough of them that there's certainly milestones that we each have to hit in each one that are similar, but there's no one way to get there, and it's always different. I mean, it's been 17 years. I can't think of like any two transactions that I've ever done that were identical. They're not. So I still find that it's going to be, if it's your most basic, easy, cookie cutter type home and maybe investor, it might be okay to do it this way. But then if it's not, then what?
You know what's so interesting to me is how many investors, flippers, there are in San Diego.
Yeah.
And this is one of the hottest markets for flippers.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how. Like,
but wait, what do you mean it's one of the hottest markets? Like they're selling them? Because I know they can't really buy them right now. There's not money to...
There's tons. There's so many more flippers here, like I would say per capita.
Oh, sure, in general.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have a big construction, I think, demographic here. And everyone's a contractor, like everyone's a realtor. Like there's always someone that knows someone. And I think that's just basically kind of how we are culturally.
Yeah, and well, there's some of these, and I'm talking about some of the bigger flippers. There's also a lot of great developers, like mid-level developers who are doing 2 and 3 houses at a time, which is great. Those guys have a really good, important role in getting more housing here in San Diego. But I mean, like these big flippers, and you look at it and you go, well, how could they possibly,
make
do
money?
8 or 10 homes a month, all of them, in a market like this? A lot of it, I believe, has to do with the fact that people who have had homes in their family or have bought real estate 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, they have these homes that are worth so much more than they were when they bought them. But they're not necessarily cash rich to fix them up.
Right.
And so they end up going direct to an investor to purchase the house because that's the option that's best for them.
There's also, with the flip side, a lot of complaints about buyers who have bought a flipped home and then have issues after. I think the way that they have to do it, and sometimes where it doesn't make money, is that they have all these people kind of salaried. So if there's not a home for them to work on, they lose money. The employees aren't busy, and that means that employee can leave and go elsewhere. So they'll even take a less beneficial home that doesn't maybe have a high enough profit or lose a little bit to keep their guys busy and get one more deal on the books kind of thing. That's what I've seen some of them do, because I'll calculate it and I'm like, that makes no sense. They're not going to make any money. And I've had clients that have had a home in the family for a long time, and all of the investment, I had like 15 offers on a property.
Wow.
And every investor that offered was right around the same number. And then there was 2 buyers that were actually end users that were going to move into it themselves, and to them it was worth more. And they wouldn't come in and redo it all at once because they couldn't afford to, but they'd redo the carpet and the paint first. Then they'd redo the kitchen. And over time, they'd add value, which is usually a smarter way to do it if it's for yourself. These flippers were going to come in, burn and turn it in a couple months, and then put it back on the market as this brand new, not add square footage. And I find that if they do that a little faster, there's less of that eye for detail, and there's a lot of mistakes that come up. We had to go post-close. We found that there was still like a furnace underneath the house that they had left that they said they removed that they didn't. Then we move in. My buyers did not crawl underneath and double check, but I had another inspector come out and went and checked, and it was still there. They were supposed to fix something. They didn't. So it was a month later that we were still dealing with these issues. That buyer said they would never buy a flipped home again.
I've heard people say that.
Quite a bit, actually.
I call it the Chip and Joanna movement. There are so many
I do love them, though.
people. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
There are so many people who want to buy a Fixerupper.
Yeah.
But they have a really hard time for a couple reasons. Number one, because there are so many flippers.
Yeah. It's competitive.
And they've really cornered the market. They bring cash. And it's hard to get financing on some of those.
Yeah, if it requires a construction loan of any kind, sure. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's just a bit of a nightmare to deal with a construction loan. Not too bad, but it is more complicated. And, maybe the family that's selling it that, was in their family for a long time, someone's passed, or, that's sometimes the case with a trust. It is a lot easier to just take cash and close it in 3 days. Mm-hmm. I mean, those were the terms they were offering my client. And, it sounded really nice, but it was a family home, and she really wanted it to go to a family, so she chose someone else. Now, the price was also higher, so that helped.
Yeah.
But I had an investor match it. He came up and said, fine, I'll do that. I'll offer the same amount, 1,000 over, whatever your highest one is, and I'll close it in 7 days.
Wow.
And I looked at the seller and I said, you have a tough choice right here. One comes with a loan, one does not. I explained the difference, and she chose the family. So
It's not always priced for sellers.
It's not always priced, no. And it was just 1,000 more, but.
Yeah, but I mean, especially with the family home.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah.
It had been in their family a long time.
And that's what I think would be really interesting if we could see. I haven't noticed any technology or any services that are in line with that concept. Although I think it would be great if there were a way to do that, or to give that opportunity, because there are a lot of people who are cool with the idea of a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're handy.
Yeah.
We're cool with it. Like, if we can get a better deal.
I think you can actually, in the long run, make more money with a fixer-upper than you can a turnkey, because you have more room. So you hopefully bought it for a little less, and you have more room over time to add value to it. So it's a little sweat equity, and I think sometimes that pays off more. We've talked about this before. You have a job, you work, and you get money for that. If you own a home, your home is also earning you money. But now if you're adding to that home, it's earning you in two ways. It was going to earn you money anyways, even if you left it the way it was. But now you've increased that value significantly. Mm-hmm. And by living there, it gives you a minute to also know, oh, you know what, this is better if I do this upgrade this way because of X, Y, and Z. Like you spend some time in the home and you figure that out. Whereas a flipper comes in and right now it is all the same. It is white cabinets, Carrara type marble. Not in a flipper you rarely find actual marble, but it was like a quartz of some kind. You'll find the wide, plank floors, the gray walls. It's what everybody wants. They burn and turn. I mean, they must have so much of the same paint. I see it everywhere I go. I'm like, oh yeah, I was just in this house, 4 cities down, and, different floor plan. But yeah, I mean,
that's what everybody wants,
and everyone wants.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
So they say, this is because they're trying to appeal to the masses. They're trying to sell them quick.
Yeah, and that does work. I think it's beautiful. I remodeled my house that way. I love it as well. So I get why people like it. Boomer likes it.
Boomer likes it. He's trying to eat the fake plant.
Oh, jeez.
Bad news, Boom.
Yeah. You're not going to win that battle.
It's not going to taste good, bro. I'm just telling you.
You keep trying, Boomer.
It's just instinct. He knows that's what we're supposed to do. You got a couple of comments here. We are live on Facebook. Drop your comments if you'd like to say what's up to Nadia, or tell me how awesome my green jacket is. You can always do that. Carlos Asinio. What's up, Carlos? He says, great content. Thumbs up. Love it, man. Good to see you, brother. Robert Comstock says online sites are just one data point, as are agent opinions. Okay, true. If Zestimate is a sticking point, they need more data. Well, I agree.
It is one aspect of it, right? So you do your research. The agents, though, I hope, if in this case for Robert, they know what they're doing, they have experience, they're more than just one.
Here's why I think it's dangerous, though, and this is more specifically. If you come in as the agent, let's say the Zestimate is $590, and you come in as the agent and you say, no, I think it's worth more like $625. They're going to believe you.
Yeah.
If you come in and say it's worth more like $525,
yeah,
they're going to believe the Zestimate.
Right.
So
and who's the Zestimate? It's this random algorithm.
They're going to like the higher one.
Of course.
So it puts them in a situation. It puts the homeowner in a situation where they can hurt themselves because they are sort of being told something that they want to believe.
Right.
And it can cause problems, and I've seen it cost people a lot of money.
We had a situation where our seller was adamant because of a neighboring property and the Zestimate overall that her property was worth more. And I was very clear that it was not worth more. There were some things that were going to make the market, it was going to make the buyers come in a little under. Case in point, street noise. So, and right at a traffic light stop. So it was, start, go, red lights flashing. It's enough that people are going to have a difference with it. I said, but if you priced it just under this number, then it will most likely rise up, and this is where it'll settle. And I said, if we go with your number, we're going to sit on the market. Then people are going to assume something's wrong with it. They're going to see that it's on a busy street, and they're going to want an even bigger discount. You almost hook them like, wow, this is such a good deal at this number. So, it's a little bit of a marketing ploy. And yeah, sat on the market. I had written it into the contract that if it sits for this amount of time, we are going to redo it at this number. And we did. We had multiple offers. And guess where we landed? Right above where we said we would. So, but the conservative number, not the number that her neighbor got, who also had a bigger lot. I mean, it's tough. It makes our job a little bit harder. I mean, I welcome the challenge. I always enjoy that. But I've had to walk away from listings before because they wanted a higher number. And I said, and then, your ideal seller, and I say, ideal because they're not. When they say, well, I don't mind, I'm not in a hurry, we can just sit on the market for a while. And I'm like, oh, that's like the worst thing you could do as a seller, because now everyone thinks something's wrong with your home. Because if you've been on the market on average in most areas in San Diego, at least coastal, more than 30 days, something's off.
People will, yeah. I mean,
It's usually the price.
Yeah,
but
we were looking at
off.
homes that were like 60 days on the market, and we're sitting going, what's wrong with this one?
Yeah.
Did it fall out?
Yeah.
Like what?
Crack slab?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's the deal?
Yeah, does it have a roof? Maybe it doesn't.
Maybe we shouldn't even go look at it because it stinks.
Right.
I mean, what is wrong?
That's what people...
60 days.
Yeah, and that's not a lot.
That's nothing.
In average, in like general, but right now in this market, yes, it actually is. But if you overprice your property, it's going to sit longer. So I think it's the sellers and the agents that are okay doing it.
And let's talk about overpricing too.
Yeah.
Because there are different levels of overpricing.
Right. Okay.
And it's a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
Right. So like when you can way overprice your house. People do that all the time, especially custom built homes. You see that happen in some areas where there's a lot of custom builds, like Mount Helix or places like that.
Sure.
It's like, okay, hey, you're $100,000 overpriced.
Yeah.
And that's just crickets. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Just crickets. But if you're even 20 or 30,000, what we're seeing now with the data, with the information that buyers have, that could also cause a stalemate.
It can, even though that's a little bit more approachable at 20 to 30, because that's within range. I think if you're within a $50,000 spread, that's a normal negotiating tool. Most sellers will freak out if I say people will come in 50 under. But if you're 50 overpriced, then they should. At the end of the day, everyone's going to do comps, look at the homes that were available, and assess yours accordingly. So if you're overpriced, someone will come in under. But I've been told by agents like, yeah, they're not willing to budge, at least not for a few months. And I said, well, let me know when they are. If my buyer's still around, we're interested. But we're interested at this price. I'm not going to let my buyer overpay, much like I won't let the seller overprice. So that's why I've had to walk away.
Do you believe that typically the first offer you get is the best one?
It has, most of the time has been the case. Not always. So I'd say if I had to give it a percentage, I'd say maybe 75 to 80%, which is
that's a lot.
Quite a bit.
Okay.
It really is. In this last market that we've had, which is a seller's market, because those buyers have already lost a few homes. They're aggressive. They know what they want. And that's a well-educated buyer, probably has a strong agent behind them, so that when they see what it is that they want, they jump on it. And they make a reasonable offer.
Yeah.
So that comes with time. You usually lose a couple to then gain. Finally, you know what you need to do to get it right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do still think it is.
I think sometimes sellers believe, well, that's just the first offer.
Yeah, I get that a lot too. I do.
That's just our first offer.
And I say it. I say, look, on average, your first offer is your best. Not always, but let's assess and let's find out if this is going to work for us. We had one recently where I said that, and the buyer ended up. I felt sometimes if they're first-time home buyers, they can get skittish over anything, and so that sometimes is a detriment too. Is if the home is older, but as a first-time home buyer, you're usually just being able to afford maybe an older home that's been remodeled a little bit, but still has some fun things for you to do, and if they don't have the financing to do that afterwards, that might be hard. Not the funds to do that. Yeah, because the financing, a lot of people work really hard and put all their money just into the home. You always want to leave a little bit left over because as a homeowner, things come up. Yeah. Like when my septic tank backed up the other night. That was fun. Surprise. 11:45. That's pretty much what I sounded like. Yeah.
Actual footage.
You don't want to see the footage. You can just hear it. But yeah, so you have to be prepared to kind of handle little things like that. But I do think that sellers are like, well, that was just one. Let's see. And then you know what? It is their home. At the end of the day, they get to decide. So I can only guide them as far as I can. Luckily, that seller agreed, accepted, that closed, and everyone was happy. We didn't leave money on the table. I think everyone won in that situation. And that's ideal if you can be in an escrow transaction that closes where everyone kind of wins a little bit.
Yeah.
No one gouges the other. Where that was happening a couple years ago with the seller's market. I'm finally feeling a little bit of an evening out, in part due to the fact that sellers are overpricing their homes. But I also feel that it's now the buyers have gotten a little bit smarter. Interest rates, again, are so low. They're not in a huge rush, but they know that they can afford what they can afford, and they feel comfortable doing so.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who have been renting for a very long time.
Yeah.
And really want to get in on the party.
They should.
I feel that. I see that. I talk to buyers on a daily basis, and that's kind of the sentiment that I think that's there in the marketplace, is that buyers really, they want in.
Yeah.
You know, they want to get on the other side of the road.
I mean, it's a great investment, period. We talked about this last time too. It's a roof over your head. You're paying for that anyway somehow. But it's actually, I think it's more of like that American dream coming true a little bit. And for me, it gave me another great sense of purpose. And there's something nice about owning something and coming home to that, or this is mine. Like I get to control, like I get to change. I get to do whatever I want with this. And I think that gives people the warm and fuzzies. I think it's a sense of accomplishment. And a lot of times it's just step one on the road to many homes that you're going to own. So that first home is never perfect. And neither, you know, like we say, rarely do you drive a Ferrari at 16. You kind of work your way up, or a Mercedes, whatever. You work your way up to that. And that's really what home ownership is as well. You start where you can, and that's indicative of a time in your life that you were able to do it. And as you move forward, you work your way up and you end up with the home that you always wanted. Yeah. And I think that's like this really nice, fuzzy, warm cycle of the American dream that we can do here.
And if you're in the financial position to keep the homes,
even better. Yeah, maybe you get a couple promotions at work, and now one's a rental, and that's paying for itself. And now you have another home, that's another asset. And I think it's amazing if you can do that.
Yeah, you don't need a whole lot. I mean, I know. Really, you just need to have your own home paid off, and you can retire so much more comfortably than the average person. Yeah. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4 homes, I know one buddy who's got 5 homes. He's like, as soon as I have these 5 homes paid off, you know, he's like, I'm going to have over $10,000 a month in passive income.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Good for him.
That's like freedom.
Yeah.
So
I think this online, tying it back to that too, is a little similar to, I had a friend, the swiping app, the Tinder app. It's like that dating. Everyone's face now looks different and morphed because of all the apps, right? So I'm like, God, my friend just got even 20 times more gorgeous. Or, you start seeing them like, how'd they do that? So there's that. That's where you're seeing someone. Then you meet them in person and you're like, swipe the other way. So that's what I think. But I think that's what's happening a lot of times with homes as well. And I think that ties it back to why it can be a negative. I think it's happening overall as a society, really, in just a lot of different ways. It's like everything looks a certain way here, and then we're like, I don't want it.
And then in reality. Can set in. Yeah, I think there are, you can tell when someone has great photos.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job. The professional photography is great. I also, though, I think there's, in some cases, the bad photo homes are worth looking at, because sometimes it's just bad photos.
Because it's the agent who's an idiot or something. Because, by the way, if you have photos out there of your home that are taken on an iPhone, fire that agent. I am like, that is my biggest, well, not the only pet peeve. I have many, but that is one of them. How can you not showcase a home properly? I find million-plus homes, and I'm like, dude, the lights aren't even turned on. Like, come on, buddy. Do something. Like, I mean, now you can take decent pictures with your iPhone, but you should not. There are professional photographers. It doesn't break the bank. If you have one shot to sell your home and it starts online, those pictures are the first things everybody sees. I mean, and every buyer starts online, even our older demographic does.
True.
And if you're not going to knock it out of the park with those pictures, or the best that you can, I mean, let's be fair, the home might be, might need some work, and that's fine. The price should reflect that. But the pictures need to be nice ones.
And if they're bad, which I've seen, in fact, we looked at one this weekend, had terrible pictures.
Okay.
And I told my wife, we're going to look at this one because the pictures are bad, but it's in a great area, and if it's just bad pictures, it could be a great deal.
For sure. Well, then score for you if that's the case.
And it was.
It was?
It was. The pictures were just awful. The place was awesome.
How does a seller not look at the online listing afterwards compared to every other listing that's out there? Now let's go back to where the technology is good, and you're wondering, like, well, wait, why doesn't mine look like that in terms of just
I think some sellers do experience that. I've had situations where sellers have, not been successful selling their home, and they reached out to us for this listing or something like that. And one of the things that they said they noticed was, hey, it wasn't on Zillow, it wasn't here. Like, why isn't it there? How come we don't have, photos? How come we don't have video? How come we don't have these things? So I think some sellers do notice that.
Okay.
But they have put such a high level of trust. They've got a contract with the listing agent. They got a listing agent who's telling them, trust me, I've done this. I know what I'm doing. Who cares about that? It's hard for them to come in and trump that. You know, so
well, we're just talking about how they easily trump it when they want their price. I mean, so it's either way. So at some point, though, if you can physically see that something is not up to snuff, you can say something regardless of the relationship or the contract or whatever. You want it represented correctly, and that should be discussed up front. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I even forget to mention that I do it because it's just a no-brainer. So much so that we've even grabbed staging furniture that we actually stage our own properties if they're vacant. Oh, boom, boom. You
What's up,
tell
boom?
everybody. We'll even, because on pictures, taking a picture of a vacant room doesn't look great.
No.
I mean, I don't want to see a vacant room.
No.
So if I throw some furniture in there, so now we have a warehouse and we have like a staging company that we do this. We're staging one right now because I just know it'll look better overall.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And yeah, we'll grab a few more buyers that want to come in and take a peek at it. Because looking at, tan carpet, tan walls, or beige carpet and gray wall, whatever, isn't as enticing. At least with furniture there, you can start to spatially see how the house flows a little bit more.
Yeah.
So professional pictures, and if you can, staging. I know it's expensive. We throw it in for free, so give me a call. No.
You do it for free?
On occasion, yeah, we can.
Okay.
Depending on if we're using it elsewhere or not. But I mean, it's a nominal fee we charge too. It's just really to cover the movers and the storage unit.
Yeah.
So we're not making money on it. I just know it sells faster, better, and for more money, and that's my job as a listing agent.
Yeah,
so.
no question.
Yeah.
No question. And there's also, those little things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things you can do too.
Well, anticipating, thinking 10 steps ahead. Like, I already know this is going to be a problem, so let's address it today. And a lot of people might say, I've worked with different agents who are like, well, let's just wait till it comes up. I'm like, or solve it now, and it's not even a problem. So there's two different ways, and I'm definitely probably a little bit more of the, wanting to plan a few steps ahead so that it's the least bumps on the road for that client. So.
And I think that's definitely what you want to accomplish as a listing agent. And when it comes to these different technology items, I think what we could say is that there's probably pluses and minuses to all of them.
Yeah.
And the real question for me is like, what's the next thing that's coming? Like, it's gone so far now where they have, you have Open Door, where people are going and looking at houses by themselves.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a seller, I would not want to do that, but apparently people are. You have, these iBuyer situations where
Right.
people are, I don't know if they're investors or who they are, but people are coming in and buying your house directly from you, cash or whatever.
I think I see potentially it working for some, and I see potentially a lot of lawsuits. And once
That's
that
what
happens,
screams to me.
Yeah, when I see lawsuits in the future, I know it won't last too long. So I guess those who are that interested in trying it, go for it.
Yeah.
And then, give me a call when I have to come in and fix it.
Save the day.
Save it, like with my Kate.
Call Nadia on the run. What's coming up in your next show?
We are doing, actually, this is a fun one. I'm trying to work with the city of Encinitas. They are doing a huge push for ADUs. And
Are they?
Yes, trying to get as many, and they're so much so that they've even waived permitting fees. They've supplied 8 different floor plans for people to choose from.
Wow.
So they're really making it easy, if you can, to add that to your property. They have also decreased the setbacks in some areas to allow for one kind of in the corner. And they have a great push for that. And I'd like to educate the people of Encinitas about it. Every city is going through this right now. But Encinitas is the one that's actually behind of all the cities in San Diego. It's the only one that's behind on their unit counts requirements. Yeah. So this huge push is a great way for a seller to increase the value of their home. I'm looking into how it can be financed and things like that. So I'll have that on the show. And then it's summer, so I have a fun fitness guru coming on to.
Nice.
I always, sit a lot at my computer, and I also sit a lot in the car. And I notice that I have neck issues in part probably because I don't take 32 seconds to stretch in the middle of it, because who has the time? So I want just some quick little steps that people can do at their office and traveling. I think that I'm going to be traveling this summer, and I'll always forget that I'm supposed to work out and not just eat gelato all day. So doing something while you travel that's easy and feasible. So I have a couple of those people coming on, which is great.
Awesome.
And we have some great listings coming up, which I'm really excited about too. So I'll be back on List It Live for that.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
It's
you,
always
babe.
great to see you, darling.
Do you want to say bye to Boom?
And Boom.
Boom's too busy cleaning his. Hey, Boom, Boom. You want to say hi to everyone?
See you later, Boom.
Say bye. Come here, Boo Boo.
You gotta get him in there.
Yeah, you got to. He's just too
You gotta
cute.
say bye to Boom. He's like the cutest.
Little Ewok.
He totally looks like an
Doesn't he
Ewok.
look like an Ewok?
Oh my
He's a little
gosh,
Shih
Boom.
Tzu.
You are an Ewok. Did you realize that?
Yes.
That's why you look so familiar. Hilarious. Awesome stuff. All right, terrific stuff, Nadia Colucci.
Thanks, Derrick, so much for having me.
Great to have you as always. Terrific knowledge that you've shared with us. Hey, share this with your friends. Make them smarter than everyone else. Awesome.